I just told you, if you look at the World Trade Center, there's the North Pedestrian Bridge. I think it collapsed when that partial building just collapsed. I was on the street, I don't have much more.
I was operating a prayer space, interfaith prayer space, in downtown Chicago. And after 9/11, people were leaving the loop in droves. So I paused to think we need to understand other faith traditions better. I already knew something about Islam, and it had nothing to do with what was going on there in New York City. I founded Sacred Space International to educate people about the world's religions. And the way I could do it was through what I know, which is architecture.
I think Suzanne Morgan is typical of the people I mentioned who have to be pioneers. You have to really throw yourself into it. There's not a natural constituency ready to go. You have to find the people, put on programs that do that. And I think that Suzanne, by finding the link between interfaith work and architecture, has a special combination that grabs people in a hurry.
My passion for sacred spaces grew out of a couple of experiences earlier in my life. When I was very happily married to my husband, Ray and I went to the Bahamas to be with my parents at their vacation home there. And it was one Monday morning when I was sunbathing on my favorite beach, the place of peace in my life. When my mother and friend came along and we all went to see some upside down jellyfish back behind the house on Bonefish Creek. And a native Bahamian came out toward us with a knife, threatened my mother and friend, and took me away and raped me. The rapist had dragged me into the bushes and left me there. I screamed for my life. My friends called the police, who found an attorney for me. I felt like trash. And when I would tell people about it, I also felt distance from them. I had to find new ways to recover. I began to see sanctuaries as places for healing. I started in my own church in Asheville, North Carolina, where I was in the education for ministry. I went to a program at Harvard, the Harvard Architectural School, returned to Chicago, connecting with Dirk Ficke at the Parliament of the World's Religions, who put me in touch with religious leaders all over Chicago. And then I started taking people to different places of worship and practice.
And when Suzanne Morgan came to us, and when she became a Sacred Space ambassador, I felt that, wow, this is a great means of expanding our reach, expanding our goal and our mission of connecting people and their faiths. When we go from one space to another and we see similarities and differences, when we see beauty and we see structure and we see people actually engaged in their faith, doing their thing, just as we do in our own sacred space, it's just like, wow, that brings the world together.
The way that we grow our religious identity within a single faith is by encountering people of other faiths. That it's through that encounter with the other that we discover ourselves.
Sacred Space International is important, first of all, because it is interfaith. It alerts us to something that we're breaking down barriers that used to be huge.
I started taking people to different places of worship and practice. Bus tours, some were walking tours. I started planning international tours. We developed city guides that included about 10 to 12 religious sites. I began to commission architectural models of religious spaces in Chicago. One model, that was my first one, Unity Temple in Oak Park by Frank Lloyd Wright. This is a world-renowned building. It's excellent because it's such a clear description architecturally of the faith tradition. So that Unity Temple is a complete different orientation. It's a horizontal orientation, and it's horizontal because it focuses on the people, on the congregation, and welcomes people from all traditions, reads from all scriptures, brings them in as individuals, and takes them out as a community.
So bringing people together shows what we have in common. The common thread, of course, is always spirituality. Not the doctrine, not the words, but what you feel inside. The feel of Buddhism is to be horizontal, not to be vertical. The Catholic Church perhaps is the example of vertical to us. When we come into the back of a Catholic church, it's long and narrow, and your eyes are supposed to go up. When you enter a Buddhist temple, you usually come from the side and you look sideways. So the feel is horizontal. And this is something that is very important to Buddhism, to be one with nature, to be calm, to be one with the earth. This is a reflection of the religion into the space. Sacred Spaces was a unique opportunity, very important. It gave us a structure, a way of presenting Buddhism to other religions, but also for us to then meet people, see a living tradition, sort of on a personal level.
The greatest threat to interfaith understanding around the world is the greatest threat to almost everything I believe in, namely indifference.
The greatest threat to religious understanding and interfaith efforts today is hatred.
We invent the stranger. We put the name on the stranger. We know why they're bad.
If we understood each other, if we accepted each other, we became friends, we ate each other's food, and we shared things, we would be friends. But when you don't want to be friends, this is what causes dissension, problems.
Yeah, the greatest threat today to interfaith dialogue and interfaith work, I hate to say it, but it's the governments. It's as simple as that. When I go to the Parliament events with the Council of the Parliament of the World's Religions, we have over 200 faith traditions under the same roof for about 7 days. People who speak different languages, clearly have different faiths. They are from different parts of the world. They eat different foods, all coming together just to understand each other. And I'm walking down those halls every time I've gone to a Parliament event, and I say, boy, if our governments could only see this. When they say, oh, you're from America, it must be very difficult to live there. You know, and why? Oh, because you're Muslim and you wear the scarf. And I go, but why? And they say, because you're a Muslim living in America. And you know, I respond by saying, you know, I'm very blessed because I can live my faith the way I want to live it without a lot of cultural baggage. And I've also been blessed with not facing a lot of discrimination and prejudice directly. To be honest with you, before 9/11, I wore my scarf 10 years before 9/11. I didn't have these concerns, I didn't have these fears.
I grew up in a suburb where a third of the people were Jewish, so being anti-Semitic was pretty unfashionable and probably would be socially challenging. But there was a friend that I made who moved in from the city and wasn't aware of his new social environment and referred to me as a dirty Jew, and I punched him in the stomach. He punched me back, and that was the end of that. It didn't go more than that. This person really lost their social group, and it became a real problem for them socially. Where me, on the other hand, my social cachet went through the roof.
But I'll never forget this one time. I was driving down on Harlem Avenue, and I was on fumes in my car, and it was a right turn on red. I slowed down. There was a car that was turning opposite to me, and she had the right of way, and I cut her off. I shouldn't have, right? I cut her off. And I had to go to the gas station, and she was behind me really close, clearly upset with what I did. I'm sorry, it happened, right? I had to get to the gas station. We get to the gas station, I'm looking in my rearview mirror, and there she is, following me in. I'm like, oh gosh, what was gonna happen? So I pull up and I go ahead and I fill my car with gas. She's in the other island filling up her car with gas. And I go in to pay and I'm coming out and she was sitting against her car and she said, you know, go back where you came from. I just kind of looked at her and I just nodded and I just went on my way, because that's the more dignified response. That's the better response to have.
It's very natural that different people come together. I guess it's the way to look at it is we celebrate differences. A garden would look very bland if every flower were the same color.
Being an interfaith experience, that led me to appreciate other religions from my own. And that took me to other places, other faith traditions. They always augment my own faith and deepen my own faith as a Protestant Christian.
You go to a synagogue, the Sistine Chapel, Mecca, to Gurdwaras, Hindu temples. That one connection of worship is still felt in that particular place. So interfaith worship, if one feels comfortable with going to a different house of worship, to say, I'm just going to take it in and look at the different varieties that are out there, but yet still stay connected with what I believe in, you can still feel that. It's amazing. It's amazing.